Welcome to what will be a limited series on the channel. This is Express to Orbit, rockets only. We may do some other ones of these, but we're going to start out with this one first. It's going to be a bit of a how to get to orbit nice and quickly, RP1. You could call it how to speedrun. Before we get actually into the game, I just want to show you the settings I'm going to use are the standard normal settings that when you start the game up in RP1 you have. The one change we're going to make is to enable or turn off X-plane contracts. So this is going to be a rockets only playthrough. I may do some in the future where we do X-planes, things like that. Give me some comments down below. What would you like to see? What limit should you be? This will probably only be maybe 3 or 4 episodes at most to orbit. So let's do that, and then let's get to the game. And we are greeted straight away with all these little pop-ups that we need to work through. So first of all, initial retirement dates, and don't need to worry about that. We're not going to use crew at all in this playthrough. And then we have Kerbal construction time. So we want to, we're not going to be moving. We're going to be going from the Cape. If you want to, though, you might want to click understand and move to whatever launch site you want. This playthrough will work on any of those. But we'll spend our 1 point now. We're going to put it straight into, into the VAB. There we go. Got our VAP done. There we go. Get rid of Gene. And then we have to look up here. We have 49,000 funds to use, and we're going to actually we're going to use some of that straight away. We're going to buy 2 tokens, and we're going to throw those into the VAB straight away. Right, now we're going to just let it tick over a little bit, then we're going to go to mission control. In mission control, we want to first of all make sure that we've actually finished this unlock tech tree part node. If that is actually here instead of first launch, just go back out, wait a few seconds, come back in. I think it takes about 5 seconds to run through. We're going to choose first launch, do that. And then we're going to exit and we're going to go and build ourselves a craft. Right, so here we have our first craft. I've called this the Argon 1A. If you want a copy of this craft, it will be available. I'll put a link in the description. You will notice one thing about it. This is first launch. Normally you just send your craft up as small as possible, as quickly and easily as possible, get it done as quickly as possible. We've got a parachute on this. This is because with the changes to RP1, we don't get any science until we get over 40 kilometers, and so this craft is gonna basically give us science for coming back down and landing. Even if we have an engine failure, if anything goes wrong, as long as this thing flies and then is recoverable, we get some science. So it's sort of a backup for us. Also, it means that we get that recovery from flying in the atmosphere science nice and early, and we can put it into our science queue. We can get the science moving, because the big thing about trying to sort of go fast, trying to speed run, trying to get everything going, is to get the milestones as quickly as possible, to try and get all the science, the money, everything. You're trying to basically keep everything optimized as much as possible. So we're going to build this. Remember, we need to tool it. So here we are. If we go there, you can see our time is only 50 days for this craft, so we're going to do that. If you are doing a playthrough with X-planes, you're probably going to put an X-plane first, but you may debate putting a rocket like this first. So let's have a look at this craft. At the bottom, let's start at the bottom. We've got ourselves an Aerobee engine on the most basic config. We then have just a conventional structural tank, and it has it's pressurized, high pressurized, and it's full of fuel. And of course, because of the new RP1, we actually have nitrogen there in there to give it pressure. We've got some little fins on the back to give it stabilization. This nose cone is a service module, primarily because I don't need a lot of fuel in it, but it actually works out, I think mass and things like that wise, for this craft it actually worked out better. So I played around with it. You can put a normal tank on there. Service module just worked better for me. It doesn't need fuel in there. You can see we're actually overburning significantly with this engine, because we're going to use this a little later for overburn. You can actually just get rid of that, and it will drop that down to, I think it's about 55. It's a very sensible sort of thing. We're actually overburning because we can. We would really love to get over 40 kilometers and get some extra science. So a little overburn might help us. What we also have is we've got some science on board. We've put the pressure scanner, we've put the temperature scanner, we put telemetry analysis on. They're all set off and ready to go. Telemetry analysis we get for free. The other two costs a little bit of mass, but it is important for us, because if we get over that 40 kilometers, we can start to get science. And if we can get enough science, we'll get a bonus build point, a bonus upgrade point, and that is important for us. So we've got that. We've also pulled our electric count down to 50. What we could do, and you can do if you really want to, is let's have a look. You could turn off the antenna. That will give you, and let's have a look at this. 2069. If we turn off the antenna, where are we? Antenna, turn it off. You gain actually a chunk, and of course this is unguided, so as long as you're okay with the parachute being armed sort of remotely, which I sort of am, I think it would be on a timer. But anyway, we're going to make sure we build it. There we go. We're going to unlock all those parts. So back on the main screen, we can actually see that by taking the antenna out, we saved ourselves over a day of build rate, which is really, really useful. It actually will shorten everything down. We have that one craft being built. You could put the second craft on there and it will save you basically the rollout time of this one, which for these small rockets is not much, but later on it can actually save you days and days of building. So keep that in mind. We don't have any tech yet. We're going to launch this craft, and then we'll talk about the next step. So you can see that it's going to take 2.5 hours to roll this craft out, so we're not massively saving anything by not building the next craft first. You don't need to do anything while this is going on. This is just like the first craft is often just like a normal playthrough. You try and get your first craft out as quickly as possible. The one thing we have done is put all of our points into that VAB. We've got nothing in R&D yet because we don't have any need for it. So we're going to roll this out, we're going to launch it, so I'll see you on the launch pad. Here we are on the launch pad with our first launch, and we're just going to get it going straight away. You can see that instantly it says that avionics is locked because we have got a science core on this. We do not have any control. We don't need any control. The fins, the position of those fins means that our center of mass is actually ahead of our center of drag. So as we get over about 150, 200 meters per second in speed down in the thick atmosphere, it's actually going to self-stabilize, and as we get faster and faster and faster, it becomes actually more stable. We do have a slight curve in our launch. You can see a gravity turn is developing, but actually that's not a big problem for us. This craft, just like this, could get over 80 kilometers up. We don't really mind where it gets, as long as we can actually launch it. We can complete the missions. The further it goes up, the more money we get. If you're concerned about your design or anything like that, you can kill the engine a little early. 60 kilometers is probably a good idea. If you can really push it, because we're using the basic fins, if you come down fast enough, they will burn off. So that's quite handy. And what we can do is we can just check, are we actually getting some science? We are now. These are running. So the science will actually end up getting stored. It will not be transmitted because we don't have an antenna on this craft. So what we'll actually start to see is that this data should start to be stored. If we actually have a look, it should be going up. There you go. We've got 0.1 on flight in that one, for example. You can see it's starting to build up. The electricity will last for a long time. We could actually have reduced this electricity because that electricity of 50 is designed for that transmitter to be running as well. What we don't want is for our electricity to run out before we actually come back through. So this is an all or nothing mission. This thing has to land to get us the science of this. If you're worried about that, if you're worried about your parachutes and things like that, and we can look at the parachutes in more detail in the next one, then have the transmitter on, have the antenna on. Removing that antenna probably gains you about 15 to 20 kilometers almost in altitude. It's a heavy mass, so if you can do without it and you've got a parachute already and you're going to hopefully recover the craft, it's probably a positive. So we're not too worried about that though. So let's speed this thing up and get it back down to the surface. We're going to hopefully get science for recovering this. We're going to hopefully get the science that's on board in that little science probe core. What we would really like to see right now is these fins, as it starts coming back down through the atmosphere, then break. We actually need those to break, because if they break, it means that this end here where the fins are becomes the heavy end, and we get this lifting body effect off the side of the rocket. At the moment, that pointy end there is a problem. If you have problems with this, what you can do is put a decoupler up here and actually decouple the end, and you will actually give yourself a flat nose, which will actually be very good for slowing down more efficiently, shall we say, and you won't end up with potentially firing into the ground. So let's see how this thing goes. We're down now, so if science is now finished, we're now traveling at 1,000 meters per second downwards, and we're getting into the thick atmosphere. So now the question is going to be, do we start to lose fins? Do we slow down quick enough? And you've got to remember, you've got to turn your parachutes on. So we've hit 5 to arm our parachutes, and the fins are getting warm. Are they going to blow? That's the question. Oh, I don't think they are, and we may have a problem. There we go. One of the fin, 2 of the fins, they've all gone, I think. There we go, and our nose has gone. Oh, and we had a parachute issue. Now, we had one parachute problem. That's fine. We only needed one to stop us. Again, that was a really good loft. We came down from 80. What I would probably suggest is, with this craft, go up to 60. Go up to 60 and then cut the engine. There we go. There's the cone coming down over there. But it's fine because these are the bits that we want. We want these bits. We can use this whole bottom section as a crumple zone. We have 2 parachutes on purpose. I actually stagger them. That first one will have taken some of the brunt, and I'll show you in the next craft how those are set up. So there we go. Landed and recover. So back to the Space Center. Here we are in the Space Center, and you can see, because we didn't transmit any science, this is something you don't often see a lot of, we have got a load of different samples of science. You can see the ones at the top there are all the flying low that you get 0 for. You don't get anything for it. But below that, we've got flying high for all these different things. Forest, shores, a nice range of things. We've got landed that doesn't count anything as well, so we can do that. We also got recovering a vessel that survived a flight, 5.5 science. That's key. Even if we hadn't had that science on, if we put no science on this craft and really gone for it, we could actually get the Kármán line probably without any science on this and without a parachute. We would have got first launch, but we wouldn't have got this chunk of science. And getting the Kármán line this early, well, we've got another flight that we have to do anyway to get the Kármán line. So this is a good way of doing it. So we've got that science underway. We've got some parts back, not massive amount of money. So then we're going to go for research, and this is really up to you how you start this off. I personally would go, you know what, let's get one of you, and one of you, just to start with. You don't need to spend it all. You can just start the process. So what we're going to be aiming for is we're going to be aiming long term to get up to basic rocketry. We're going to be aiming to get to early material science there to allow us to basic rocketry. And then we're going to be looking for avionics prototypes, primarily because that just lightens the load a bit. If you actually have a look, you drop the mass quite considerably by stuff. So that's going to be what we're looking for. Let's have a look at our next steps though. So in mission control, we now have 2 missions available. Remember, because we're on the rockets only line, we don't have any of those flying planes contracts. We have only a very limited number of contracts coming up. And so actually this maximum of 2 is quite handy for us at the moment. So we're going to take the Kármán line. Thank you very much, Jane. We're also going to take this this low sounding rocket of 50. By not going over 100, we still get this one. And that will give us another 3,000. That's quite nice. So now we're up to 53,000. So this is where you want to start doing a bit of speedrunning thinking. So we're going to actually buy some more upgrade points. We're going to get 2 of them. And this is where your first decision comes in, because you now got R&D underway, and you could give that a bit of a bump, and it's a reasonable bump. But we really want to get our rockets out of the way straight away. We want to get to the bigger milestones, so we're not. We're going to put all of our points, those 2 points, into our VAB. That takes it down quite a bit actually. And then we're going to need to build our next rocket. You can see we're keeping our funds really low. We do have enough for a second rocket if anything went wrong, but we're keeping those funds low because we don't need them high at the moment. So let's go and put the second rocket together. Here we have the Argon 1B. So we're looking here at pretty much the Argon 1A on the top there. And you can see we've put another one of it underneath and then a solid. And what we've actually done is we've kept that parachute because, again, it's another choice you can make. At this point, you're going for the Kármán line. You don't have to recover the rocket. We could actually just take out this middle stage, take out the parachute and fire the whole thing up. But we get a big chunk of science for recovering something that's gone into space or into orbit or anything like that, or suborbital. And we would really like it if this thing came back down. We know that those fins can burn off, and we know we could probably survive. So we're going to go for this. So we have a nice Tiny Tim booster there. We've changed the fins, and again, this craft will be available down below, or it'll be in the Discord, so check the Discord out. And we've got that attached here. You can see our staging. We're going to fire the Tiny Tim first, and we're not going to fire the Aerobee until that has basically finished most of its burn, and we're going to decouple it. Now, this is a change to previous versions of RP1 because the Aerobee actually ignites almost instantaneously. In the past, you'd have to do a little warm-up, so we're going to not so much hot stage this as we would in the past. Let's look at this parachute though. So how have we actually set it up? Well, first of all, it's set up for this dry mass here. So build this, set your parachute up, do that. Now the important thing is to tell it that, you know what, I want to touch down at 8 meters per second, and I'm going to use 2 parachutes, and you do it for both parachutes. This one, let's have a look. Yeah, there we are. 8 and 2 as well. That will actually save you a lot. Going from 6 meters per second to 8 will save you a huge amount of mass. You'll also see we've got 3,000 and 1,000 on here, and 3,000, 1,000 on here. You can stagger it. I've often put my deploy on one of them slightly lower, because you can then stagger it. So the first one, if that goes because you're going too fast, your second one will sometimes catch it. Okay. It can also be to do with which angle the craft is at and things like that. So that's that. Let's get this thing tooled. Is there any tooling we need to do? No, because we're using all the same size parts that we used last time, so it's no extra cost. It's going to take 47 days. So even though we've got an extra solid, an extra stage here, we're actually looking at less time because of the way we put our points. So what we actually do have here before we actually go and launch it is I have left the antenna on. Primarily because this craft doesn't have to survive the return. If it goes a bit too far, goes a bit too wrong, you know what, it may not survive, in which case we still complete the Kármán line contract, but we can get some science back on the way. So this is the other way of doing it, and again we've got our science waiting to go. So we'll launch that, buy the 2 extra parts, which are the hollow interstage and the tiny tin booster. These hollow interstages are very nice. They're actually lighter than other ones as well, so worth using. Right, let's get this thing built and move on. You'll see I do not rush build anything. Okay, so don't worry about that at the moment. So let's go build this and launch it. Welcome to the launch pad. It is the 8th of April 1951. This is our second flight. You can see we've got the craft ready. One thing I did not mention in the VAB is that we've actually underfueled this second stage. I could have retooled the tank and made a smaller, shorter tank for this. I'd rather just reuse the same tanking because we're going to use basically this structure for our next launch as well. So it just seems logical to test it, make sure everything works okay, and also it's just easier and cheaper. To be fair, these tank sizes and the tooling is not a major thing, so if you wanted to, you could reduce that and it'd give you more bang for your buck. So we're ready to go. We're going to turn on the engines, and then we're going to fire the tiny Tim straight away, and then as it fades we fire our second engine, and that gives us a little boost up, and you can see we're going reasonably straight right now. By having that extra thrust on that first stage, it just means that we get a little bit more of a push. It keeps us more stable, because as the air gets thinner, we need more speed through it to basically stabilize ourselves. If we don't accelerate quickly enough, we actually become more unstable, shall we say, and we can risk actually gravity turns taking over a bit too much. We don't want a gravity turn too much with this craft. So we're just going to come up towards the burnout of that second stage it is. And as it goes, we're going to fire this engine as soon as we can. So cut, fire the engine. There we go. And you can see there was a bit of a twist there, a bit of a turn as we staged, partly because we've got those hollow decouplers, and sometimes there's a little bit of an interaction there. So you've got to be aware of that. You can see we've got a slight gravity turn now. If I turn the camera this way, we've got a slight gravity turn. That's not a major problem for us. If it continues to develop, it could be, but we're getting up in altitude now, so it's not a major problem. What we can do is, while we're here, hit 5 to arm those parachutes. We have our science going, so we know that we're definitely going to get some science from this. As long as this engine keeps going and we don't have an engine failure, we are going to get to the Kármán line, I believe. So we're on our way to the Kármán now. Now the next thing is, are we going to go beyond the Kármán line up into space? Because I'd really like to get above 140 kilometers. That would be a really nice target for us. We don't want to go over 160 though. So we're now over 140. We want to hit about 160 is perfect. So there we go. 165 is fine. We're going to lose a little bit to air resistance. By going over 160, you get extra money. You get funds for every altitude. There's an altitude at 140 and there's one at 160. So we're going to get extra funds for that. So that's important. So we can time warp this forward now. We're getting all the science. That's actually going to be transmitted as well. So we're going to start seeing that coming in to our little science up here. And you can see the money rolling in as we complete the contracts. We've got past the Kármán line now. So we've got money from that. So we've got 77,000 now. Once we get over 140, we can actually speed this up a bit more. We're going to also start getting chunks of science. There we go. We're going to start getting chunks of science from space, which is really good. That's nice extra bonus science. You can see the science rolling in. So we've already spent 3 science units. We've got 10 in there, so I think that's 13 that we've now had. This potentially would get us about 8 on recovery, which means ideally we're actually going to get a bonus point for our science now after our second launch, and that bonus point is worth 20,000 funds. So it's basically a free 20,000 funds that we get nice and early. We're coming through here, so we're just going to speed it down. I'm going to let this run down. I'll put the speed up a bit so you don't have to sit and watch this. You can see we're starting to get lots of bits of science in. So we've actually finished telemetry and things like that. Our battery's going to start to get low because we've gone so high up. You do have a bit of a play off at the moment, because if you went to just 160, we'd still have battery on this definitely when we hit the 140 kilometer mark. As it is, our battery may actually die by then, and that's not a problem for our parachute, it's a problem for us collecting data. So what we could do is actually turn the transmitter off if we really wanted to. We could try and I think you could do something like that. You could turn the science off, you could do all this stuff. We could actually turn the telemetry off, and that might slow it down. But you can see we've got 3 units of science there. We're going to speed on down. Once we get lower, I think, yeah, we're gonna run out of electricity just before I think we hit 50. Oh no, we might have enough to go to 40. Let's have it. Yeah, well, I think we're going to make 40 with the electricity, which is good. That's a positive for us. It means we've got our electricity perfectly balanced on this. So now we're coming down. We're at normal speed, and we're going to start to see. Here we go. We're out of electricity. Yeah, just after the 40s. That's perfect. So any science we got, we've either transmitted, and there we go. We're starting to have our fins explode. That's wonderful. The nose cone goes as well, because we chose the nose cone like that on purpose. And so the nose cone's gone. This flat end at the front here is going to slow us down nice and quickly, and it's going to be a much nicer actual, not if you're on board this, because we've had huge G-force up there. We actually had a massive G-force, but coming down, our parachute should be perfectly fine now. So we just got to wait until we get a bit lower. We can actually put onto the surface measurements. There we go. We're going to come down, and then when we get to about 3,000, we'll just slow it down. I always get a little paranoid when parachutes are about to deploy. There we go. So they're going to slow us down a bit more, and we can then accelerate just a little bit more to the big expansion. There we go, and that's going to turn over, and there we are. We're just going to flop it down, and we can actually go pretty fast now. We can go as quickly as possible. So I will have this land, and then I'll recover it, or not recover it. We'll just recover the craft so we can get the science out of it, and I will see you back on the main screen. Here we are on the main screen. You can see we got 8.8 science because we recovered a vessel from suborbital flight. We also, because of that, get a free bonus upgrade point because we've now gone past the 20 science mark. And you can see if we hadn't got that 8.8, we wouldn't have gone past the 20 science mark. We wouldn't have got that bonus point. So you can run this a little quicker at the start, but you miss out on that bonus science mark. So it's really a little play. As again, I said, this isn't about the most optimal speedrun possible. It's about a good speedrun strategy. So we'll close that. Right, now this is the next bit. What we're going to do, well, we could go and do some of these sounding rocket contracts, but I don't want to. We're going to go big. We're going to go for the downrange straight away, and we're also going to go for suborbital return, because we know we can actually do that with the craft we just put together if need be. So we take those. That gives us a chunk of funds. Right, what am I going to do with those funds? Tell you what, let's go and put a craft together, and I'll show you. Right, here in the VAB we have the Argon 3A. So you can see it is the Argon 1B, those 2 stages, put without any fins. We've ripped the fins off. And then below that we have a stage with an RD 100 engine, and it's basically just a bumping stage with some little fins on the back to give it some stability, because we want to make sure that, as we've said before, our center of mass is ahead of our center of lift. That's really important, particularly for later on with this craft. So what is special about this? Well, this will hopefully do our 3,000 kilometer downrange contract with this top section up here. However, you'll notice there's a parachute here. The aim is we're going to complete 2 missions at once. We're going to have this section returned to the planet and recovered, which is going to complete our suborbital return, and this section is going to complete our downrange distance contract. Yeah, that's right, we're doing 2 at once. Now, let's do some tooling for this. So this tooling is going to cost us, it's going to save us quite a bit of time. It's going to take it to 139 days. To tool it, it's going to cost, what, almost 9,000 funds, but we'll do that. We'll pay for that because this is giving us this basic craft at the bottom that we would like. We've got an avionics unit here, and the craft at the bottom. So we'll purchase that. There we go. You can see we are overburning. In fact, it's not showing up everything very well. Sometimes it does this. For some reason, MechJeb doesn't like this craft. It doesn't like calculating. So you end up having to look over here and seeing what's going on. And if I actually put this up to vacuum for you, you can see we've got about 6,300 meters per second. The important balancing act here, and this is something we can talk about as we're flying, is this stage here needs to have enough delta V to get itself into a suborbital flight. So it needs to go over 140 kilometers. If it doesn't, it's pointless putting a parachute on it. So this has to have enough to get up to 140 kilometers, or just over that. But we need enough up here to then finish off the flight. And that's the important bit. Balancing this section here with this section here is sometimes where the challenge comes in. So again, this will be in the description down below, how to download it, get a copy of this craft. Have a look at it. There's some others. I actually would like to thank the Discord, the RP1 speedrunning Discord and so forth, for basically allowing me to look at some of their craft and see how they did it. There are multiple ways of doing this. And this is my take on it, but there are multiple ways of doing it. So let's get this built, and then let's get this launched, I think. So I'll see you on the way to launch pad. In fact, no, we have to spend some points first. So let's get back to the main screen once we've got this building. So here we are on the main screen, and you can see I've actually put 2 of those to build, just in case. So let's have a look at spending some points and what we want to do. We're going all in for this, so we're gonna take this all the way down to no funds left. We want to use all of our points. VAB is at 5. We currently know, if we go and close this, that this is going to take us 139 days. It's not brilliant, it's not terrible. We could just do that. It's going to take us towards the end of the year, but I don't really want to do that. I want to get going. So the other problem we have is we need to start getting our tech done. You can see it's taking a long time to do our tech. So let's first of all have a look at R&D. If I put a point in there, it's gonna help it significantly. So let's see, and this is where you can start balancing a bit. I would go for, get that to 7, maybe 8, and then what we'll do is we'll take this up to there. So that's on 4. So that's going to take us 4 science. That's a massive jump now. You can see these have really reduced. This has been helped a little bit. It's very tempting. It's really tempting to really push your VAB straight away up to, and I used to do this up to 10, and you can do that. You then end up having to scrounge points to get into R&D. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep that at 7. I'm going to put my other point into R&D and start that R&D research, because R&D is going to be the thing that holds us back. So we've got little or no funds now, but we've got our R&D moving. We can also start to actually select other R&D that we want to do. So we know, for example, you know what, this early materials is going to have to be done. We need to do that. Okay, at 7. We also want this early rocketry, so we're going to get that. We're going to get the early materials, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to get the avionics stuff. Okay, superb. After avionics, well, I like the advanced biological capsule. That's something nice to have. We also want basic rocketry, because we will need the RD103, so we're going to take that. We're going to go, okay, I want that. That gives us some additional contracts potentially. And then we're going to need to start going into here, because our next science is going to go for satellite era, and then we're going to have to get this Gargamulla, because we need that for one of our first orbital science contracts. Plus also this extra science is a huge bonus for us. So that's going to be our next spend, which is 10 for that and another 7 for that. So it's 17. We only have 3 at the moment. So we're looking at trying to gain another 13, 14 science to get us there. Right. I'm going to fast forward. We're going to get to this Argon 3A, we're going to launch it, and we're going to show you how you do that. So on the launch pad, you're going to set your engines off, and we're going to use Smart ASS for this. We're going to take off vertically to start with. You can tilt your rocket if you want. I tend to want to take off vertically because I want to get up as quickly as possible, primarily because the fins on this rocket actually will burn off. And then you're going to do sort of a quite a strong and extreme gravity turn. You don't want to turn too quickly because you don't want to lose too much of your energy, your delta V wasted to air resistance and things like that, but you want to be okay, you want to be pushing it over. Your aim is to be at 45 degrees, and you want to try and get there as reasonably quickly as possible without things like the fins on the back of this rocket blowing up or anything like that. At this point, if you are having trouble with this, you know what? Change the rocket, remove the parachute, simplify the rocket, and just go for the 3,000 kilometer downrange contract. You can use the Argon 1B to get the recovery from orbit contract if you need to. So that's what I would suggest. And remember, you can use the craft that I've provided. However, KSP, and more importantly, RP1, RO, they do make some changes occasionally. So things may change a little bit. You might be off. This is a very tight flight. So once we get to our 45 degree angle, we stay there until we burn out. We start our little spin. There we go. And we decouple. And that little tiny spin, just the last second, uses basically the RD100 engine to do that. We don't need any RCS or anything like that, and then it's just a case of burning these engines. You can see we're trying to minimize the wobble that they have on them. They're actually launching quite low down in the atmosphere, so we have to put a little bit of spin stabilization onto it. Don't overspin it, because you may actually end up with a situation, and I've had this recently, where the engines won't ignite because they're spinning too fast, which I think is quite a nice little one, because it sort of mirrors the liquids being pushed to the outside of the tanks instead of to the center. I think that's quite a nice little thing to do. And then it's just a case of burning these along. Again, if this is something that and I would suggest, if it's your first time doing this, your first time trying to do a speedrun where you do these two contracts at the same time, sim this as much as you want. Refine the thing, and there you go. We're just going to stage there. Refine your rocket a little bit. This isn't the best rocket for it. If you are interested, please go on to the Discord, and I will try and connect you with some other designs of rockets. Some people use a separate little pod that is the return craft. Some people use longer burns, shorter burns. You could even, you could even put multiple engines on this thing. There is a lot you can do with this to actually modify it and change what you're going to do. So this burn on this engine, we're going to take up to completion. We're going to let it burn as long as we can, and then that's where the sort of fun jumps in. Normally, you'd be able to go to the tracking station. Well, you'd be able to go to the map view on here and jump to your other craft. Because of the way it is, because we've got very early tracking station, you have to go back to the main screen. So as soon as this engine is burning out, we're going to be jumping right back. We don't want to go to the main screen. We want to go to the tracking station, because we're going to be in a rush. We are in a rush to do things. Not so much this time, but next. So the engine burns out. We check everything's okay, and we're going to press the escape key, jump to tracking station, and then we're going to close down these things because we haven't been in here before, and we're going to jump to the probe. The probe is that first stage, and as you can see, it is spinning. We're just going to speed through it a bit because we're trying to get it to basically get to back to the atmosphere to re-enter. You can see we've got to make sure that we've got the parachute armed. So you want to hit F5 if you're using this ship, or if you've got your own, just make sure you've armed it. And what we're doing now is we're just hoping that this will go through the atmosphere as quickly as possible. You can see it's spinning all over the place. What we really want is for when it hits the lower atmosphere, for those fins on the back to explode, burn off, and for us to go engine first. And then we want to actually hopefully slow down because of that fact. We want the blunt end of the engine to actually use a bit like a heat shield for us on this one. But we don't want to slow down too quickly. There we go. We've got the fins going off, and hopefully they'll go off all. There we go. More fins. So what we're hoping is that we keep some of our speed through the atmosphere, because right now we're in a bit of a race, and we are hoping that we can get as low as possible, as fast as possible, before our parachutes open. And then once the parachutes open, we want to actually drift down reasonably fast. We don't want a 1, 2, 3 meter per second sort of parachute landing. We want to actually make sure that we're hitting the water or whatever. In this case, I believe it'll be water because of the way we launched. We want to actually hit that water. Probably about 8 meters per second would be perfect. So you're going to set your parachutes for that. You can go a little slower than that, but the important thing is you want to get down as quickly as possible, because you need to jump back once you've recovered this craft back to your original craft. Now, if you do this really well, if you actually do this perfectly and you get your launch lovely, so this craft goes up to about 150 kilometers, comes back down, and you get the parachutes open at the perfect time, you get the slowing down the craft at the perfect time, you hit the water at 7.9 meters per second or whatever you're aiming for, you can actually get back up into the orbital craft or the suborbital hopping craft, the long distance craft, before it reaches its apoapsis, which is wonderful. If you don't, if your parachutes are a little bit too big or you slow down a bit too soon, then you'll be further down, but you need to get back to that craft as quickly as possible. So you can see now we've got our first parachute is open, and ironically our rate of fall actually increases because the parachute aligns us with the direction of our fall, because now the mass is actually being a counterweight almost to the drag. And now you can see we've got the parachutes opening very low down. We've got full deployment at around about 300 meters, which is wonderful. We know we can slow down nicely at that time, and we're going to jump down into the water, and as soon as we go, we're going to, there we go, get that, and then we're going to jump back to the main craft. Now we've gone through, what I've actually done is I've jumped forward. You don't need to see me jumping in, but you will go back, you'll click off all the screens quickly, get back into the center, and you'll hopefully catch this before it goes through the atmosphere and complete your missions. And what you'll actually find is when all of that's gone, it's all done, you're able to have this craft, and I always take it all the way down to the atmosphere, but if you go all the way down to the atmosphere, you can then see that you've got your missions completed. Wonderful, nicely done. So next time we're going to be preparing for orbit again. For this one, if you really want to, break it up into 2 missions. But from me, until next time, have a great one.